What's up, everybody? And today we are talking about Predator Badlands. So I saw this movie Friday night, and I was expecting a pretty decent time, and I think that's also what I got. I would say this movie is solid. I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10. I want to start off spoiler free. So if you want spoilers, just skip ahead. I put the timestamps down below. But spoiler free, I think this movie is, like I said, solid. I think what makes this movie good is the same thing that makes it bad. And when I bad, I don't mean a bad movie. I mean bad for the Predator franchise. So the Predator race called Yautja. I think this Yautja's particular story is interesting. I know a lot of people are worried about the design online, but I like that it's actually weaved into a story. He looks that way on purpose. I won't say why, but I like that it was actually like planned out. But yeah, I think his story is interesting, but by the time I got to the end of the movie, I was like, there's something about this there's a lot of things about this I have issues with, but I was like, what is it that like isn't sitting right with me at this movie? And I ended up discovering or like coming to the conclusion that this feels like a superhero movie, but if the Predator was the superhero. And when you think about Predator, you're not thinking about superheroes, right? You're thinking about essentially like thriller movies, but instead of like some person in a mask, it is this, camouflaged alien. That's what I mean is like the movie's cool and there's a lot of great stuff about it, but like when I say, oh, this is a Predator movie that feels like a superhero, you're like, that doesn't feel right with the Predator Alien franchise. And that's what I mean is like if you're going in expecting this movie to be the reverse of like, oh, we're watching The Killer this time, you're going into the wrong movie. This is basically a superhero movie with the Predator as the main character. So let's get that out of the way. But that being said, I liked him. I liked the information that we got about the Yautja, and they don't like overload you. You're like, oh my god, we are learning about the mayor of these people. Like, you know what I mean? We're in, we're out, we're in, the movie started. In terms of the action was awesome. Again, this is more superhero, less like stereotypical Predator. So there wasn't too much of like the actual like, oh, we're stalking our prey. It's more like action-packed action. There were some scenes where there was like quick cuts and the scenes were dark, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on in here. And I pay to watch movies in Dolby, so I'm like, I'm supposed to be in the best visual experience, and I don't know what's going on. So that was some issues. There's two scenes in particular that I was just like, oh yeah, I see what you're going for. We should have cut those or did those in a different way. When it comes to the characters, again, I like the main Yautja that we're following. Elle Fanning, I don't like her character too much. Again, I like her for the movie, but I don't like her for the broader universe. I think that clearly they wanted to do like, have opposites. So, oh, Serious Hunter, and then we got like, this more what's the word I'm looking for? Like, she's like bubbly, and I'm like, I don't like that. Also, if you haven't seen the trailer, she's supposed to be a synthetic, so I'm like, every other synthetic has been like very, robotic. So having her be so far in one direction, I was just like, I don't like this. And she brings a lot of humor into the film, and it's not that the jokes were bad or anything. Again, it just didn't feel like a Predator movie. And there's some other elements that also bring humor, and I was just like, this just doesn't feel right. Is the best way. It just doesn't feel what we're used to. And I know some people will bring up the fact that this movie is PG-13 instead of being R, and that being kind of a part of why some of these things might be off. And I think that is true. I think a rated R could have given them maybe more of like closer to the feeling that we're used to. But I just think like the story they wanted to tell, even if it was rated R, it wasn't, I don't know, it just wasn't, it didn't feel like a Predator movie. But I know I sound negative on it. It's just like, I don't know, it just didn't feel, it felt like a good like what if story, but it didn't feel good for the wider universe. So, I mean, like the characters, like the action. I'm not mad that I watched this. I'd gladly watch it again. I do recommend seeing this in theaters. The bad guys are interesting in the way that they are, like, aesthetically. Yeah, it's just that the humor didn't work for me in terms of the franchise. I I wish this was a little more darker and more of a, like, what's it like to follow the serial killer this one? Not serial killer, but you know what I mean? Like, to follow the hunter this time. I wish we had gotten more of that. This kind of feels like when you watch The Wolverine and you're like, man, I wish it was more like Logan kind of situation where it's like, man, I wish you were more over here. But again, this is a good movie. I just felt like it was just in the wrong direction. And I don't want to keep rambling, but yeah, those are my spoiler-free thoughts. 7.5 out of 10. I recommend you go watch it and, you know, come back and let me know what you thought. Maybe I'm a little too off, but those are my spoiler-free thoughts. I want to get into the nitty-gritty, so if you don't want any spoilers, it's your time to get out of here. I'm gonna start talking in 3, 2. All right, so like I was saying, I like Deck. I like that he is the runt, which is why he's so skinny, and a lot of people were like, oh, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm glad that they weave this into the actual story. His brother kind of sacrificing himself. I like just because I am the eldest. I'm the eldest of 5, so I get it. Maybe it's a little too close to home. But I like that, you know, his brother was the sentimental one, but the dad was just like, no, kill him. Like, this is the way. Like, we call the weak. So yeah, that was cool. But like, that reminds me of the scene, right? So when his brother like shoots him into the spaceship, you get that slow-mo scene of when the ship's taking off and he's like, oh, all slow. I'm like, nah, it doesn't work. When he does the little explosion and it's like a slow-mo explosion behind him, I'm like, yeah, this feels very Power Rangers. Let's cut that out. When he's training with his brother in the beginning of the movie, that's where I was like, I don't know what's going on. It's dark. You're doing a lot of quick cuts. There's no distinction between the two. It was not like this one has like paint, like red paint on the armor, and this one has like white paint on the armor. So I know this. So I'm like, I don't know what's happening. When Deck's fighting the giant mech at the end, there were some scenes I was just like, I can't tell what's going on. I think I know what's happening. That being said, with him fighting the mech, I didn't see the poster, so it's at the bottom of the poster. But when I was watching it, you know, for the first time going in blind, essentially, I was like, oh, this is an Alien reference, but like times 10. And as cool as it is, I'm like, this is the wrong movie. So maybe it's just me, but I'm like, I kind of wish you would have saved this for a different movie. Like I'm like imagining another scene where it's like our main character from like Romulus, and she's in that giant mech and she's fighting like a horde of like xenomorphs. I'm like, oh, that would have been cool. So having the giant mech in this one, I was like, did y'all forget which? I mean, I know it's trying to be like a whole franchise or whatever, but I'm like, I wish you would have saved that for the other half of the franchise, the alien part. In terms of the comedy parts I was talking about, yeah, Thea, I think that's her name, the synthetic. She's a little too bubbly, a little too yappy. She felt more, and I don't know if this is going to make sense to everybody. If you think about like Ninja Turtles, she felt more Michelangelo, and I wanted more Donatello. I wanted that like nerdy, I'm kind of awkward, you don't talk a lot because you're, you know, this silent, strong hunter. So I'm gonna fill the void with me talking rather than her being like, oh hey, oh my god, look, there's plants over here, blah blah blah. I'm like, this doesn't work. The little monkey dude or girl or whatever, that whole part at the camp where she's like copying him, I'm like, this is funny, but just doesn't feel like a Predator movie. This whole thing just felt like it was a superhero movie, and I'm just like, it almost felt like, what if we did, like, someone wrote like a really good Riddick script, and then someone was like, but what if you did this as Predator instead? You know what I mean? It's just way too action focused, and I wanted more of that like cold, like we're following the killer this time in a thriller movie. What does that look like except he's an alien? But that being said, I loved the planet and the way that it's just like ready to kill you at a moment's notice. Like literally when he's falling through the sky, that little pterodactyl thing was like, for real, it's free snack. Let me go get him right now. And you're, you know, he's landing down. You're seeing out this wide landscape, and there's this mountain-sized worm just like chilling over there. I'm like, holy, you know what I'm saying? The grass is made of blades. The little elephant-looking thing is covered in armor. And then she's like, oh, watch out for the June bugs or whatever they're called. And you're expecting like this little, or like, you know, maybe like a swarm of something. And it's this giant starfish type thing trying to eat you alive. Like, it was awesome. I that being said, it reminds me of, like I was saying, I like the aesthetics of the villains, the synthetic, the way that her sister, was it Teresa, has like the one eye that's like like always has the Wailing Utani symbol, and she's more like cold and calculated, and she is more of the robot of the two of them. And the fact that like every other synthetic is just the same dude over and over again, I'm like, oh cool, that's fucking awesome. When I thought they were in trouble in the forest and they're getting attacked by the little plants, and they just blast through them, and then they're like, all right, burn the whole forest down, fuck it, we don't care. I was like, okay, like we got some stuff going. When Deck and the monkey and the pair of legs are going through the camp, it felt very like when you're really good at stealth in a video game. Not me, I suck at stealth. But when I'm good at taking out at least 2 people, and then I always get caught and I gotta go guns blazing. But I like that, Deck loses all his stuff pretty much in the beginning. So by the time he gets to the end, he's like, I gotta use everything I've learned along the way. Granted, when he got the little eel snake, super cool. I'm not a hater, but the way that it kept like working with him almost felt like they had trained for like days on end. And so I was like, this eel's a little too trained for me. It did pull me out of the movie just a little bit. And especially like when it, does the little hop forward, gets down, Mr. President, and, sacrifices itself. I'm like, well, this isn't earned. If anything, this should be the little monkey girl. But yeah, what else is there to really say about the movie? Again, like when we get to the end, like the end, and it's Deck and it's bigger monkey girl. I keep forgetting what the creature's actually called. And it's Thea, and they're all standing there, and they're like, yeah, we're one tribe. And it's like, this just feels like the superhero like action scene, like, here's your heroes now, and it's like, here comes my mom. It's like, oh fuck, this is cool, that part was cool. But I was like, I just kept being like, this isn't working in a broad sense. Like, I don't want more action Predators. I want more of what everyone keeps asking for, which is like, just give us a Predator and then throw them in a different part of the timeline, So let's have Predator and, everyone says Japan. Let's have the Predator versus the Vikings. Let's have Predator and, Aztec times. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's do that. And so when they're doing they were like, oh, we're going to do a Predator movie. I'm like, cool. What's it like if almost like you're watching Halloween, except it's the Predator. What if we're watching the original Predator, but it's from his version this time, except it's a different Predator in a different group. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, at the end of it all, I was just like, this movie just tonally went in the wrong direction. And it's awesome, and I enjoy it. You know what I'm saying? I watch this any other day over something as awful as The Predator. But it just isn't what I feel like a lot of people are asking for from the franchise. So I feel like a lot of people are going to feel a bunch of different ways about this movie. I know a lot of people are probably going to be most likely pissed off. I feel like the other half are going to be like, okay, this movie was awesome. And then you're going to have like some of the outliers like me who were like, this movie's awesome, but this isn't what we want. Like, don't go this way, go the other way. And it's crazy because it's the same dude that did Prey, if I'm not mistaken. And I enjoyed Prey because Prey is just like, what if we did a modern Predator? You know what I mean? So, again, like I was saying in the spoiler-free section, if you skip forward to this part, I give this movie a 7.5 out of 10. I think it has a lot going for it, but it's just not particularly what I want from the franchise. I wouldn't mind if we got another movie of Deck's story specifically, but I do not want a like separate almost kind of Predator franchise where it's like, these are all the action ones and then these are the standard ones that you came here for. I'd rather we just do let's give him like one more and then let's get back to the stuff that we actually want, please. So yeah, I'm not gonna ramble on anymore. Let me know what you think about this movie down in the comments below. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Do you feel like this is more of what you want from the franchise? Do you want more of the original? Do you feel like I'm crazy? I don't know. Don't forget to subscribe, and until next time, peace.